Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's approximately 10:20 on June 18th, 2026. I'm Mike Kelly, Chairman of the Board of County Commissioners for Johnson County, Kansas. We're here with the full board. Commissioner Fast is virtual. We are hearing continued presentations on the FY 2027 budget. We'll hear from several departments and agencies today regarding their proposed budgets. We will also have an opportunity today to consider the revisit list, which is the items that have been marked by 3 or more commissioners who would like to discuss potential changes to the proposed budget regarding those items. There are several verbose presentations today. Therefore, we're going to take breaks approximately every hour, 75 minutes. It might be a little longer, it might be a little shorter, depending on if we're at a good stopping point. There will be a lunch break at some point, but all to say, thank you everybody for your patience today and for the good discussion ahead. At this time, I'll allow any opening comments from Ms. Post Oak Ferguson that she'd like to make.
Thank you, Chairman. I know that we are looking forward to the day as you have outlined, and then at the end of the day, the revisit list to give us direction for the maximum expenditures for July 16th. So with that, I'll turn that over to Robin and Mark.
Good morning.
Absolutely.
I just really want to quick go through the schedule as the chairman already gave a short overview of. This morning, I'm hoping to get through Library, Park and Recreation, Opioid Fund, and Consolidated Fire District Number 1. And then, as you mentioned, if that is a good time for a lunch break. And then we would have the outside agencies coming in the afternoon. I believe we have let the Fair Board know as they are first to please be here by 12:30, but understanding that we may not begin until 1 for them. And then after that, we would follow up with the revisit list. You do have a new revisit list in case there are any items this morning or this afternoon you would like to add. And then we would notify, or we would let these departments know that they would need to stick around for the afternoon session when we discuss the revisit list. And so with that, if there are any other questions, I can turn it over to Tricia Solenthrop for the library.
Further questions at this time? All right, then we'll welcome Tricia Solenthrop from the library.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good morning, everyone. I want to give 2 welcomes to many of our friends of the library who are here to support, show their support for the library. And I'd like to welcome our Library Board Chair, David Sims, who you'll hear from in a minute, and our Vice Chair, Charles McAllister. These are outstanding board members, and I want to thank each of you for appointing dedicated volunteers who care about the library and this community and give every minute of their time to furthering the mission and the vision of the library. I'll turn it over to our chair, David Sims.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. As I think I've met all of you at one time or the other, I am David Sims. I am the chair of the library board for this coming up year, and I appreciate the opportunity to discuss the proposed 2027 budget for the library. So as you know, our community has and deserves a world-class library system that supports and enriches our lives. We recognize and appreciate the balance of maintaining high-quality service while ensuring financial stability and accountability to our fellow taxpayers. The Library Board is committed to supporting these efforts. We also remain grateful to the Board of County Commissioners for your continued support of our comprehensive library master plan. That spans 20 years and helps us make informed decisions about services, programs, technology, staffing, spaces, and partnerships. Refresh of the plan is currently underway, encompassing community input, data analysis, and expert insights. So guided by this plan and with your support, we continue to meet our commitment to strong neighborhood libraries and offer the services people depend upon every day. In 2025, we continue to evolve the way we served. Connected with patrons and partners in meaningful ways ensures we could grow alongside the community. During the year, the library system welcomed 1.7 million visitors in our 14 locations, added more than 28,000 new cardholders, and circulated more than 6.8 million physical and digital materials. We also saw an 8% increase in registered users across 2025. More than 246,000 community members now have a library card. In addition, the Black and Veatch Makerspace at the Central Resource Library expanded operational hours from 34 to 54 hours per week, thanks to the additional staff that you approved in the 2025 budget. To further our mission of making library services accessible to all, we also began offering library card holders a print allowances of $1.50 per day. This allows users to print documents such as a resume, cover letters, school projects, and more at little or no cost. And I think we did a good job of balancing that out between not making sure somebody's not abusing the system and overusing it, but really help those people that need that help. We also sold the former Antioch Library and surrounding properties, the proceeds from which will help future capital projects. And also, after more than a year of user testing and development, in August, we debuted an enhanced website experience for jocolibrary.org. So it was also a year of powerful programs and collaborative partnerships. We offered more than 3,400 programs attended by 108,000 people of all ages, covering a vast array of interests. Signature events like the Writers' Conference and my personal favorite, the Summer Reading Program that's expanded, continue to be major draws. Throughout the year, our community could find help, learning, and connections. From learning to weld a soldering iron in the Makerspace in January to celebrating Jane Austen's 250th birthday with tea and Regency-inspired crafts in December. We truly have everything. As a community partner and connector, we worked alongside those who serve residents every day. With the American Heart Association and HCA Health Midwest, blood pressure monitors were placed in 10 locations, expanding access to essential tools. Partnering with Raising KC, the library helped bring an initiative to reduce toxic stress for children directly into the community through an interactive exhibit and art display. And support of civic engagement remained central. Through a longstanding partnership with the League of Women Voters of Johnson County, the Legislative Coffee Series brought together lawmakers and residents in a respectful, neutral space. The library offered election resources for informed decision-making and worked with the Johnson County Post to provide candidate forums. Part of our commitment to our community involves the upkeep and modernization of our buildings. In the second half of 2025, the first major renovations in more than 40 years began in the DeSoto and Spring Hill Library branches. As you may have seen in the news lately, more than 1,000 patrons came through the door on Spring Hill's opening day on June 3rd, which was quite impressive. I'm glad I wasn't there to have to deal with 1,000 people in one day. Which just kind of underscores the important role of the library within the local community. Both projects were on time and on budget when they opened this year, and that has been a consistent theme for my 8 years or almost 8 years on the board. None of this would be possible without the resourcefulness, creativity, and hard work of our staff. Because of their efforts every day, the library consistently performs well in the annual community survey. The most recent survey, 86% of all residents were satisfied with the quality of library service and ranked the library as one of the top 5 services that are important for the county to provide. This is something that we do not take for granted. We work to provide library services at the lowest cost while also always looking for new ways to add efficiencies as we deliver benefits to our communities. A very timely example is our investment in the multicultural resource and staff training to prepare the World Cup visitors. This will leave a lasting legacy to help us serve our multicultural patrons well into the future. Careful and deliberate approach to planning and implementation continues to be successful and ensures that tax dollars are spent wisely. During times of economic uncertainty, we uphold our responsibility to our community, and we're committed to strong financial stewardships on behalf of taxpayers who need our resources. I would also like to take a moment and also thank facilities, HR, Department of Technology and Innovation, Office of Financial Management, many other county departments who partner with, help and support the library and our mission. And I think the staff has done a good job of seeking out those opportunities. As a board, we are committed to providing an accessible and enriched environment for a community to learn, explore, enjoy, create, and connect. So thank you again, Commissioners, for your continued support of the library and the Comprehensive Library Master Plan. With that, I'll turn it over, I think, back to Tricia.
Thank you, Chair. On our first slide, you can see that the governance of the Johnson County Library rooted in a few state statutes. The library is heading toward celebrating its 75th birthday. And so a lot of this work happened before many of us were in the room or in our seats. So it's a good reminder, especially as we get comments where what reveals there may be some confusion about the library, independent taxing district, and the county operating fund. So we provide this slide just to confirm that and help folks understand what the difference may be. Next slide, please. The vision and the mission of the Johnson County Library is here. As David mentioned, several things that connect with our mission, specifically around access. This year, we had 60,000 room reservations, so access to meeting spaces for our residents. 168,000 folks used computers. 250,000 used Wi-Fi provided by the library. 325,000 reference questions. 6,000 residents took advantage of our Home Connect program, and over 300,000 interlibrary loan borrows and lends. So that access is on a variety of topics and quite varied. And then creating that environment, we have 860 volunteers who have provided over 40,000 hours of volunteer service over the past year. Next slide, please. You all may remember your engagement at our 2025 joint library board meeting, where you gave input on the vision of the Johnson County Library for the next 20-plus years, that comprehensive library master plan. We originally did this in 2015. This year, we're working on a refresh, and you can see the updates there. The public and staff engagement will begin after World Cup as people clear their minds and have a little bit more time on their schedules. We expect the recommendations to be ready in 2027. Those will go to the library board for their approval and discussion, and then to the county commissioners for your awareness. On the next slide, you'll see our upcoming capital improvement projects. You see Spring Hill and DeSoto, which we've mentioned. Both of those buildings are open. And as you have probably heard me say before, both of those buildings were completed on time and on budget, as is our practice with our buildings. We are in discussions with the City of Prairie Village on the Corinth replacement. And I can answer more detailed questions about that as there is interest. And then you'll see the green bar is the comprehensive library master plan study, so that's happening as well. The blue and the orange are placeholders for upcoming projects, which will be determined by the comprehensive library master plan. So we've set the programming and the scheduling for those out several years, just to give folks a sense of there are more projects coming as we hear from citizens and staff and our county partners. All that will be more specific. This is our capital replacement timeline. So you can see while we may not be building lots of new buildings now, we certainly take very seriously keeping and updating our existing buildings. You can see we try to do this work with our, facilities partners, and we try very hard not to close our branches as access is paramount for us. You can see in red those buildings that do require closures, and the rest of the work, we work around schedules and work with patrons so that they're not significantly inconvenienced. We try to spread those capital replacement out across the library so that no one region of the area is closed and doesn't have access to library services. I'm going to turn it over to our Finance Director, Dave Rotney.
Thank you, Tricia, and good morning, Board. So I'm just going to quickly go over our budget process. Back in 2017, the Library Board, by way of an administrative regulation, 107010, created a budget review committee that was to help kind of oversee, provide some additional oversight, and then also provide an opportunity for board members. So there's 3 of our board members on the the Budget Review Committee to do kind of deeper dives into the planned use of funds, taking kind of a longer range look at the financial forecast, and then any of those larger changes that may be happening, whether it be a reduction or an increase in expenditure authority that we may be seeking, going into those details. And then, and since 2016, part of that process has been looking at the capital project financing, which has always included a portion of cash along with debt on most of our major projects. And then as for 2017, we're asking for 3 positions. There's a logistics manager position to oversee our library systems couriers and management of our warehouse operations. This would include procurement and some inventory tracking, material delivery, and just better management of our mail postage in the library. And then an IT applications administrator to help provide for the expanding technology offerings that we are providing to our patrons, which includes audiovisual systems in many of our public meeting rooms and other public spaces. And then we've also seen an increased need of specialized software from a staff support perspective. And then the third position is an IT Security Analyst 1 position. We see an evolving cyber security landscape, as most of you probably have also seen and are aware. Back in 2022, we added a Security Analyst 2 position, and the rise in threats and complexity and the sophistication of those threats has done nothing but rise in and since then. Not because of us adding the position, but just I think it was a good time when we added it then, and we're just seeing more of a need to help support that work now. What happens is a lot of times when those threats come in, we have other staff then that have to drop the things that they're working on to help out with that, and this would help mitigate that. And then as for our capital improvement projects, we have 3 projects that are requesting funding for 2027. The first one, and Tricia had shown you the planned projects for this year, but it's our capital replacement program. That's about $3.9 million. That is for our ongoing maintenance of our library existing facilities, which includes our mechanical, electrical, plumbing, the building envelope work, any of the landscaping work, which include redoing of parking lots, and then also our shelving and major furniture replacement needs. The other large project, and this is a new one, although it's to replace some existing technology that we have, it's the automated materials handling upgrades project of $1.15 million. And this is to replace a couple of our existing sorters that are nearing end of life. It's also to replace dozens of our self-check and RFID pads, as well as replacement of our gates at our patron entrances. And we believe we can do that with some of our existing fund reserves. And then the other project is that Capital Library Master Plan Future Projects Funds. We've been setting aside funding as part of our funding strategy, and that's approximately $1.07 million. And that would be for those placeholder projects that you see in the future, and we are looking forward to bringing forward the results of the Comprehensive Library Master Plan that will help inform where and what those funds may be used on in the future. So with that, I'll stand for any questions you may have, and Tricia's here as well, and we welcome any questions. Thank you.
Well, Ms. Solenstrup, Mr. Vrotny, thank you very much for the presentation. In the interest of time, I'll say thank you, and there's plenty of regalia I could share about how great the library is and how important it is to the fabric of the community. I'm going to save that for a later time. I want to talk a little bit, Mr. Vrotny, about the facilities and about some of the work you're doing here and the funded capital repairs that you're making. The material handling upgrades, I think, are great. I think one of the things that we've prided ourselves on in Johnson County is the ability to create better facilities and making sure that they operate in the most efficient way possible. Saves county resources, helps us meet our goals. So I appreciate that you're doing that. One of the things I'm hoping that we can align ourselves on in future years and moving forward is that focus on energy efficiency within our facilities, particularly the guidelines that have been created here for the county facilities regarding sustainability. The hard work and the heavy lifting has been done by the county on those, understanding the library board's independence and ability to make decisions regarding those policies. I hope we could find alignment on those policies because I think they're good policies. And again, the heavy lifting has been done, and comprehensively implementing those within the library board potentially allows us some cost savings or alignments when we're looking at comprehensive changes in buildings that could be investments, could be debt financed by the library special fund in a way that has a 5 to 10 year payback and then helps us more effectively operate county facilities. So I look forward to continue that discussion and would just encourage you to consider that and maybe have the board consider that from a policy standpoint in this next year. But I appreciate it at our joint meeting, the sentiment of collaboration and partnership when it comes to policies, particularly the land policy, and having that discussion of, as we are looking through our facilities to maximize the utility of our facilities. I appreciate the library's board's willingness to look at that as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Allenbrand, why don't you go ahead?
Thank you, Chair. And I just want you to know I appreciate everything you do with the finances. I know you have a team and it's also a lot of input, but I think you've even reduced your budget and just the planning and projects on time. I'm doing some projects at my own home and they've already gone over. I mean, it's really hard now with everything going on to control those. So I applaud you for that. Mr. Sims, I thank you and the volunteers that serve on that board meeting the needs of the residents and especially upgrading the DeSoto. And I have a little bit of Spring Hill, but I have a lot of family and friends that live out there and not listening to the voices that didn't want that done. Because we open the doors up, it's to everyone. And there's a lot of people that are coming in that couldn't afford to do other things, and it's allowing them to use the internet, it's allowing them to read books. I can't begin to tell you how much I appreciate that. And I know I give your board a lot of heat on the electric vehicles. And I'm sorry, but I truly believe that that's the future, and also creating revenue for our county. But I want to thank you and the entire board and you, Ms. Ellenberger, for all the work that you do. And I'm looking forward to, I think it's an 80s movie party coming up in September. So I'm already working on my outfit.
We have high expectations, so yes.
Okay, all right. Could you get the chair and the other commissioners
Yes,
to
yes.
dress up in the 80s stuff too?
Happy to do that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Good luck. Commissioner Hanslick.
Thank you. Well, thank you for being here today. I wanted to follow up on some of the questions I asked at our joint budget meeting, or our joint meeting. Of the average county tax bill, about 16% goes to the library. And when we've heard from other departments, and I recognize that the library is not a department, but it's a different kind of entity, but they have all provided us with a list of service modifications that they have made to help keep their budget and their operations as efficient as possible. Is that something that you can provide to us?
Yes, we certainly have worked with budget to provide service modifications and efficiencies. As far as an example is, the county recently implemented a hiring pause for this year. That's something that the library has been doing for the last 5 to 8 years, where we pause on hiring a position, really look at, do we need that position? Do we need it as it was written? And what may that turn into? So that's a savings and efficiency, a bit of containment that we've done on our own over the many years, probably actually starting back with the recession. So that's a longstanding practice that we've held.
I wonder if maybe budget, do we have a list of those things and their value, like we have for the other departments?
You mean as far as the vacancy savings?
Just any service modifications, because the
We
other
do not
departments have
have-
given us a list.
Yeah, we do not have any specific service modifications. I believe they have, I'll have to look at our efficiency tracker to see if there are any library efficiencies that have been reported on that. But we do not have any service modifications for the library at this point, for those specific items that we've actually been able to reallocate funding or reduce funding.
Because I think that's something that we all love the library. It's very popular, and we want it to continue to be a great place. But I think it's also our responsibility to make sure that the library is being held to the same standards as the rest of the county services. So, if I can get any information on that, I'd appreciate it.
Sure.
Thank you.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A few questions. Ms. Solentrop, forgive me, when did you ascend to become library director again? Can you remind me?
July of '22.
22, okay. COVID, space-time continuum's all messed up.
We
so-
had a party, and I thought you were there, so.
Very good.
yeah.
So a few questions, if I could, and I don't know if this is directed to you or Mr. Bratney, but under your KPIs, you have an interesting or a little bit unusual measure that says percent of fund balance to current year budget. Most departments, or at least some departments, have a measure that reflects on percent of expenditure to budget. So what's the difference here, and why does the library present that as the metric?
So I believe when we put that into play, and that would have been for the 2001 budget, when we were reevaluating and redoing our KPIs, it was more in tune with.
2001?
Excuse me, 2021. I've been around too long. It's 2021. And when we did that, I think it was more of I would call it a measure of just making sure that we were above a certain threshold on our reserves as we were beginning to do some rather major capital improvement projects. And so it's a little bit of a conjunction with that and our planned use of those reserves over time. So we've done a really good job of being able to have usually a fair amount of our capital projects cash funded by way of either use of reserves or some of the money that we've been able to set aside for those future projects. For example, we were able to fund about almost half of the Merriam Plaza Library by way of cash and only debted about a little over 50% of that project. And then more recently, the Spring Hill and DeSoto project were entirely cash funded by way of use of reserves. So it's a little bit to help address some of those capital needs that we've had by way of use of those funds.
Thank you. I
Yeah.
want to be respectful of time. So
Sure.
the question I wanted to ask next, you're adding 3 positions, and I was wondering, will those positions potentially, especially the logistics manager, help address the deficit that we see in your KPIs related to number of user visits per resident? Is that the intent of that?
No, the logistics manager is focused on coordinating internal projects as far as moving things between our 14 buildings, delivery methods, different routing. So it is not connected to user visits or door count.
Because historically, in the last number of years, that library has added an engagement coordinator, a digital media specialist, a school-age coordinator, and part of the conversation we had a few years ago was to kind of address the attendance, the participation in the library, and it hasn't improved. So do you have something in this year's budget that's going to try to address that KPI?
Well, I would go back to our library card registration is up 9%. So that's a pretty big increase. We're circulating over 7 million items. So that's an increase from previous years.
Commissioner Ashcraft, can I ask a question about that KPI specifically, and then I'll give it back
Okay.
to you? The number of users, visits per resident, number of transactions per resident, that is per resident, not per library card holder.
Correct.
So as the county continues to grow, that metric becomes,
Correct.
you know,
A little harder.
different kind
We're
of
chasing
challenge.
it, yes.
Right. Okay, thanks. Go ahead, Commissioner.
Fair question, Mr. Chair, and I'll just ask then one last KPI question. Employee satisfaction at work for Johnson County, it appears that we're in the yellow area. So
Correct.
is there anything in this budget that attempts to address that KPI?
Those three positions are not specifically addressing that. And what I hear you ask is about the engagement scores for this past survey. When we did a little bit of analysis on those scores, we learned we did have a significant drop from previous years in '24. When we look at '25 numbers from the engagement survey and to '26, we have flattened that curve a little bit. I know that's a COVID phrase, but we flattened that drop a little bit. And so a few things that I know library staff are responding to, some of which is library, some of which is in the world. Certainly Kansas Senate Bill 244, county hiring pause and changes in HR with a significant reorganization. That certainly staff are responding to those changes. Things we've done internally to the library, we have a list of engagement activities or opportunities that a staff group developed and then recommended and we implemented. Things such as a monthly in-person town hall for staff for that connection and communication, in-person regional conversations with staff, little smaller groups. We are bringing back our in-service day. We haven't had one since 2017, so that will return this year where libraries will be closed and we can all gather for education and communication. And then we are also offering additional support for the Leadership in Action Award winners. They get a stipend from the county, and there may be other educational opportunities that match with that LIA winner that they want to pursue. And we also have set up a staff engagement team to make that staff engagement opportunity sustainable. Today, actually, we are joined by several staff from the library as an engagement opportunity. They're watching this presentation with our deputy so she can kind of explain some of the stuff that's going on both with the library and other county departments. We also do a weekly video explaining those types of things. So that's some of the
Very good.
detail stuff that we're doing.
One last quick question then. Under your mission, you close your mission by talking about enriching people's lives, very noble intent. I was just wondering, do you feel these KPIs adequately reflect that enrichment effort?
Adequately. I think they do a good job. I think we have room to grow in our KPIs.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Burr?
Thank you, Chair. Just a few comments, and I'll preface, I'm serving as the library liaison to the Board of County Commissioners, to the Library Board for going on 2 years now. And so I just want to make a couple reflections, observations, and just confirm some of the information. Mr. Ratney, first I want to say, Ms. Seldenstraat, Mr. Ratney, I appreciate the work of your staff and your work personally, and certainly the dedication and the work of the total library board. Doing math on a napkin, when I look at library operating and library special use budgets for 2027 proposed, it's about a $1.7 million decrease over the previous year. And that's with increasing the staff in those key positions, and you noted why they're needed. And it's with some important capital improvement work that is going on. So one, I want to acknowledge that I feel like you're looking at your resources. You're trying to be very intentional on where your key needs are, and you're finding funding efficiencies in order to fund those key needs. Not saying that continuous improvement can't always be happening, but I want to acknowledge and recognize what I observe through the budgeting process since I serve as your liaison and attend your library board meetings. And I know a lot of heavy lifting was done not only by staff, but by the library board itself in really wanting to approach this with very maintaining, a budget cap or lowering overall cost when and if possible, and still having exemplary services. I also want to acknowledge that Spring Hill and DeSoto, I had the opportunity to tour Spring Hill shortly after it opened. I would say a couple of things about Spring Hill. I would say, one, the fact that in day one, you had approximately 1,000 visitors your first day of reopening. You had 600 visitors your second day of reopening. That's a community of a little over 11,000 folks, so that's about 10% of the population. So I think that really demonstrates an appetite for library and library services, and certainly because that library had to be closed for a while, certainly pent up energy wanting to go into that library. And I think your card registrations that day were just through the roof. Yes. The other thing is that library is piloting some extended hours that are unmanned hours, and so there's a process for that. I want to commend you for the amount of time that you allowed the board to have discussion and input, and how you listened and did some modifications to the pilot to be reflective of where that discussion went. So I thank you for that. And then I also wanted to talk a little bit about the Corinth Library, because I know that has come up. Corinth Library planning began way back in a previous comprehensive plan. I
Correct.
believe one of you can tell me which year that started.
2018.
2018. And I had the opportunity at the beginning of this year to do quite an in-depth tour of the Corinth Library. And I would tell you, I started out my employment journey in life being a library page in a Carnegie Library that was built in the 1800s, right? And I experienced as an employee there all the ways that we were trying to overcome the barriers of a building that was deteriorating around us, to the point that it became a barrier to access that building to the very patrons that you were trying to serve. I will say I see that in the Corinth Library. The water issues that you have, that no matter how big you build the sewers or how many sandbags you pack up on the interior and exterior of those, the fact that you're on a downhill slope from your parking lot and that's just water running to the building is like trying to put your finger in a dam that's breaking down. Your ADA issues reminded me of some of the ADA issues that we encountered in that library where I started my employment journey. Your space issues, your parking issues, and the fact that you're today bracing your shelves just so they won't fall on your patrons, and the lack of ability to extend any technology or electrical in that building, to me are all important points in why you're doing that. And I'm wrapping up my comments, if I could just have a moment more. So I see a almost decade journey of saving and creating the space, the understanding, the study to do what needs to be done, and I commend you for that. And finally, I just want to remind us that libraries are an important gathering space for sharing, learning, and building connections. And in a time when personal isolation has been cited as a public health issue, you create a true space for that time-tested response of creating a space to share our stories and to communicate and gather. Thank you.
Commissioner Myers.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I know the chair's holding back because of time of giving you the thanks and the appreciation for all you do, but I can't do that. I have to tell you how very proud I am of our library system. I think you go about things, you do it the right way. And the same with Parks and Recreation. You know, I constantly am amazed at the work that your organizations do. Even though we have much responsibility from libraries and Parks and Recreation, you're still your own entity, and a lot of the work that you do is on your own without our guidance, even though we give guidance when needed. But again, the work you're doing is fantastic. I want to say thank you to the workers. I want to say thank you to the volunteers, the friends of the library, everybody that's involved. It's what makes the library system what it is here in Johnson County, which I believe is second to none. So congratulations. Thank you for all you've done. I know we've had some questions asked and answered today, and as those come, when I have questions, I always can reach out, and I know I'm going to get the answers or the response and the information that I need, and I thank you for that, and keep up the great work.
Thank you. We couldn't have this great library system without commissioner support, without support from our fellow agencies. Jeff Stewart, of course, is my mentor and, fashion advisor, so I really appreciate his tutelage over the years.
We've got to get you a better advisor.
Commissioner Fast.
Yes, thank you. So I watched, Tricia, you presented at the Prairie Village City Council Monday, kind of preliminary, very preliminary draft plans. I guess I would like for you to talk about that. Also, Prairie Village has geothermal. The chair is talking about sustainability. I know in the Merriam input sessions, which I attended, that was one of their top agenda for the Merriam Library was sustainability. I wonder if somehow we could tap into their geothermal. But anyways, my question is this, when would public input start, and what's the timeline on this?
Right. Thank you, Commissioner Fast. I hear you asking about the Corinth replacements. Specifically, Monday evening, I presented to the Prairie Village City Council a high-level site test, how a library might be able to fit on a piece of land that they have. It sits on Mission Road. Currently, right now, there's a basketball court and a community building. So if you have that area in mind. This presentation was really to understand if the library program could fit on that space square footage wise, as well as get an indication from the city council if they are interested in us being on, joining them on the campus, and setting forth that library staff and city staff can work together on all the next steps, such as land, how the building fits on the site. The geothermal field sits to the south of where the library property, what we're looking at. So the geothermal field would not be disrupted. They would maintain that. But I do think, Commissioner Fast, to your question and comment, is there sustainability efforts that we could weave into that building, whatever those might be? And that's an ongoing conversation that will happen with design with our facilities partner and ultimately the architect. We're very interested in that. Did some similar work with Merriam, as you mentioned, Lenexa, each building that we build. So we're very open to that.
Thank you. I had a question just on your budget, the charges for service. I know that the library board chose to eliminate late fees.
Yes.
What compromises or what is entailed within charges for service that is a revenue line item for the library?
With late fees going away, we still charge fines for missing damaged material. So that's the bulk of that. Other things that we would charge for are things that we purchase that patrons then purchase, a flash drive, those types of small things that that allow them to use the library in a more full way. As far as other fees that we are charging patrons, there aren't many besides those.
Thank you.
We do have, this is a fee for service with Olathe Public Library. So you may remember we have an interlocal agreement with the city of Olathe for Olathe Library Services. We charge the city of Olathe 23% of, that's the population of Olathe versus Johnson County. So that is a fee money that we gain back through providing library service. Most of that library service is technology and kind of that support on the back end rather than patron service.
Is that fee variable on a year-to-year basis, or is it set for a number of years in contract, that percentage?
So we actually have specific things that are covered, and it's software packages, and so it's a 23% of their portion of that cost as a total. Plus, there's a few positions that we have that we charge back part of their time for that work, and then also our e-resources we share with Olathe Public Library. So in total, I mean, I think last year it was about $650,000 I think we billed back to the Olathe Public Library. We see this as beneficial for both systems because not only are they able to piggyback on our system, it provides a seamless product for the end user, so the patrons of Olathe Public Library and Johnson County Library are interchangeable in that regard, in that they could come into any of our libraries, use their Olathe Public Library card, and vice versa, as well as dropping off any of the materials. We have our biggest interlibrary loan is between us and Olathe Public Library. So like from an end user perspective, that's really been good. And to be honest with you, the amount of money that they give back more than offsets our additional costs as it would relate to those types of things. So it's been good for both systems. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, this is something that I think is really an example. Oh, sorry, I actually hit it off. I think this is a good example on how they do a really good job of looking for ways to save money, because I wish I could take credit for this, but I can't. You know, it's been done before me because we've asked that question, and if we were, most of those are fixed costs, if I'm not mistaken. So if we were not sharing with Olathe, that's just $600,000, or maybe it's $400,000, that would just be out of our budget that we'd have to spend. And Olathe is probably even getting more so, just because they're a much smaller library system, and their fixed costs would then be of what they would do, the technology, the software, all the things he said that would be hit on a much smaller, at least residence base. And so I think that's what they've done a good job of, just looking for how can we share things. I think, the facilities and, using the facilities rather than maybe an extra person that we'd have to hire.
Don't get me wrong. I think it's a good mutual relationship. My question was more about the contract, and just as Olathe continues to grow, I want to make sure the county's getting its fair shake in the deal. That's all.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hanson.
Thank you. And in regard to Olathe, I've never really understood why we have two systems, and I wonder how much more money could be saved if it was all one system. But I appreciate the information on the financial relationship. That's helpful. I wanted to follow up on what Commissioner Ashcraft had asked about the employee satisfaction. Because one of the things, when I served on the library board, or served as the liaison, that I think a lot of people don't realize is how many difficult situations library staff have to deal with. And I'm wondering, because I'm not seeing in the funded positions, but what are you doing to help make sure that staff have the training and tools they need to feel safe and to feel they can safely handle some very challenging situations that come up at the libraries?
Yeah. You're right, during your time as the library board liaison, you certainly got a front row seat to lots of things. Patron interactions is one of them. Our staff is resilient and trained, and while that can be at the top of the training can be at the top of the game, it still wears on you as a person, both to handle those situations, to be involved in what are the lives and the really great challenges of some patrons. Many of those challenges, result in great things, and there are some that result in really hard things. One thing we are in the midst of doing, we have done some analyzing about the number of staff we have in some big positions, some big groups, and shifting where we don't need some circulation function, where automation has really helped us, and we can shift those staff to more public service. So we're in the process of doing that right now. That really is a first step in making sure that we have enough staff for public service, but also that there is a good enough, a regular rotation. So you may be working, the same amount of hours, but maybe you're not with the public for 7 hours of your 8-hour shift. Maybe it's 4 because we have enough staff to give some relief, so that you can also do training and education, take a break, and grow some of those things. So we're definitely in the midst of that right now. I would expect as our user visits grow and our circulation increases and the population of the county increases, that we would ask for additional staff to that end of how do you make sure you have enough people in the building from a safety perspective to cover the square footage that we have, also to give a little bit of a relief factor. So those are upcoming plans. We're going to address that in the comprehensive library master plans. We want to look at what staffing we need from all of those perspectives.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that and look forward to hearing more as you move ahead on
Yeah,
that. Thank you.
thanks for the question.
Commissioner Allen Brett.
Thank you, Chair. I was just thinking, and that's always dangerous when I think. But because it's in your neck of the woods, I'm wondering if there's any way that your committee, housing committee, could work with the library to think about Corinth and having some housing tied to it. I mean, I would love to live there. And thinking of the Friends of JCDS, that would be a great location with great volunteers and workers,
Right.
and even people that are retired. So, and I don't know anything about I haven't looked at the land but you might consider that.
Yeah.
Good thought. Commissioner Ashcraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. 2 quick questions, building on what Commissioner Hanslick, the chairman, asked. Mr. Vratney, do you monitor and try to make certain that in the relationship with the Olathe City Library System, that we maintain an equilibrium, kind of a cost-neutral relationship? Do you track that in an ongoing basis?
I do.
Okay,
Yeah.
very good. Second question, the removal, and the chairman asked this, and it came to mind, so thank you. The removal of the late fees, the intent was to, at least in part, was to make books more accessible for certain individuals, and I think there's a logic to that. But one of the questions that came up was how that might impact, and for lack of a better term, evaporation rates, where things disappear or they don't come back because there's no motivation. So have you been tracking that, and has that been successful, or had any changes?
It has been successful. We've certainly seen anecdotally the number of patrons that come in, a sense of relief and a sense of pleasure and thankfulness that there isn't late fees or late fines. We have not seen an evaporation of our materials. If anything, people are checking out more materials because there is that ease, and that access has been restored for many of our patrons.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to say thank you to the library board, to the library staff for the conversation today. If there's anything you'd like to Marcus revisit, please do so. But in the interest of time, we're going to move on. Welcome Parks and Recreation.
Thank you very much.
We're all going to do better. We're just getting the train rolling.
Okay, good morning, Commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you as we present Johnson County Park and Recreation's proposed 2027 budget. It's my pleasure to speak on behalf of the JCPRD Board. I'm Eric Haig, Vice Chair of the Board of Park and Recreation Commissioners. I'm joined by Jeff Stewart, Executive Director. He will be the one proposing and reviewing the budget with you after my remarks. Deputy Director Rhonda Pollard, Chief Financial Officer Noel Lewis are also in attendance. Johnson County Park and Recreation District had much success in achieving many of our established goals and objectives since we were last with you a year ago. To highlight a few, we look forward to celebrating with you at the upcoming Mid-America West Sports Complex rededication ceremony. I believe that's going to be in July. That will be completing a 6-year phased rebuild of both Mid-America and Mid-America West sports complexes. Perhaps now the best baseball and softball complexes in the country. They are already outperforming high expectations, proving to be sustainable operations and a major economic driver for the community. It's been a year filled with community engagement. As a result, we now have a vision for what will be the largest regional park in Johnson County, the Greater Kill Creek Park. Heritage Park and Thomas S. Stoll Park master plans were completed, allowing us to keep these active parks healthy and in alignment with community expectations. In response to demand for childcare services in the county, and by following our recently developed Children's Services Strategic Plan, I'm very pleased to share that JCPRD is now under contract to purchase a former Montessori school site in Northeast Johnson County. Once acquired and improved, we will be able to serve over 100 additional children and families every day through enriching childcare programs and fine and performing arts programs. We've stayed steady in pursuing additional park property, recently closing on approximately 70 acres that connect with Lexington Lake Park and feed into the city of DeSoto. Also under contract is approximately 230 additional acres that will connect and run along the Kansas River. The Legacy Plan, our strategic plan, has guided us well for the past 10 years in maintaining, protecting, enhancing, and expanding our beloved park and recreation system. As you all know, this community-driven plan was recently updated and was expanded out to 2039. While we are thrilled about the successes we've had over the last 10 years using the community's plan as our guide, we are even more excited about the legacy that we will be delivering to the community as we work collectively to bring that shared vision to reality. We are positioned well to realize the community's vision. As a fully accredited agency, JCPRD uses best practices in providing park and recreation services to Johnson County. We have incredible support from the community who have told us that they are willing to invest more in JCPRD services. We have a plan. We understand the community's priorities as outlined in the aforementioned Legacy Plan. We have absolutely the best team of professionals and volunteers in the country, a team that has a proven track record and is ready to do more. Look no further than the watch parties at Theater in the Park, as Commissioner Myers referenced earlier today. While we are thankful for JCPRD's success, we recognize that there is still a lot of work to be done as our parks and recreation facilities experience heavy use and the Johnson County community continues to develop rapidly. As previously presented to this board, there are many unfunded needs that have been identified in the Legacy Plan and other comprehensive plans that have been recently completed. We are committed to working with your governing body, of course, the JCPRD staff, and our community to continue our efforts to enhance services across every district in the county as desired by our citizens. On behalf of the Board of Park and Recreation Commissioners, please know that we greatly appreciate your continued support of our efforts. And at this time, I'm going to let Executive Director Jeff Stewart do all the hard stuff. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Haig.
I thought that was the hard stuff. Well, good morning, Chair. Good morning, Commissioners. Good morning, those of you that are in the audience, and thank you, Commissioner Haig. I'm Jeff Stewart, Executive Director for Johnson County Park and Recreation District. And it's truly an honor for me to be in front of you today to present the proposed 2027 budget for JCPRD on behalf of the citizens of Johnson County, the Johnson County Board of Park and Recreation Commissioners, and of course our incredible team of staff and volunteers. As noted previously, we still have a lot going on here at JCPRD and are continually thankful for the guidance and tremendous support of our community. And as always, we want to extend our sincere appreciation to all of you for providing the funding and the resources that allow us to best serve our residents. Next slide, please. Oh, I'm sorry, you were ahead of me by one. Okay. Our purpose is to enrich the Johnson County community through excellence in parks, recreation, culture, education, and public service. And the community-driven mission, this community-driven mission is the foundation for all that we do at JCPRD, including shaping the proposed 2027 budget that is before you today. And through our next slide, please. Through our nearly 11,000 acres of public park property, 157 miles of trails, 25 recreation and culture facilities, and over 4,200 programs and events that we offer on an annual basis, JCPRD attempts to meet community needs and to provide essential services that welcome nearly 11 million, or actually I think last year was over 11 million visitors and participations throughout the year. In other words, JCPRD truly has something for everyone, for all ages and all abilities. While we're very pleased with the volume, it's really about the quality of our services and the experiences had by those that we connect with. We're pleased that through the most recent community survey, the Johnson County citizens have told us that we're successful in our mission and that it is aligned with community expectations. For the third year in a row, the community has ranked JCPRD at the top in citizen satisfaction. And I believe that's 38 points higher than the national benchmark for park and recreation services, so quite remarkable there. This is reinforcing, indicating that our compass is in fact pointed in the right direction. We are committed to providing diverse services that our community has told us that is most important to them, and the community has confirmed that they expect continued emphasis in JCPRD services as well. The JCPRD team is engaged with the Johnson County community and with each other. Each member of our team plays a significant role in shaping our culture that makes JCPRD a great place to work, to learn, to develop, and grow. Results from the 2026 Employee Engagement Survey indicates that over 83% of our team is very satisfied with their work experience with JCPRD. And we're very pleased that the community agrees, voting JCPRD the best large employer in Johnson County for the third year in a row. And we're also so very proud that our services are recognized and appreciated across the country, awarding JCPRD the most prestigious award in our industry, the National Gold Medal Grand Plaque, which we received just last fall. I share these things with you as symbols of the support from our community and our commitment to excellence. I hope that you too have been pleased with the service that we provide the Johnson County residents. The recently updated Legacy Plan, JCPRD's strategic plan, focuses on 4 elements that embody our mission and our vision. The Legacy Plan elements were shaped by the citizens and stakeholders of this community, and these elements serve as the foundation for JCPRD's budget and our capital improvement plan. And it strives for balance and excellence in all that we provide the Johnson County community. The adopted elements of providing a thriving park and recreation system, inspiring play, culture, and education, fostering and inspiring stewardship, and advancing organizational readiness and access will continue to provide a balance in priority and services and guide us in decision-making moving forward. A summary of the JCPRD proposed 2027 budget is highlighted before you. The budget submitted to the county for your consideration was unanimously approved by the JCPRD Board of Park and Recreation Commissioners just this past April. We are pleased to share that the proposed budget is 55% funded from non-tax sources and this is actually more than double the amount of the national average of other park and recreation agencies in the country. The 2027 proposed budget maintains our current JCPRD dedicated mill rate of 3.023 mils, which also includes the .646 mil that is dedicated to the legacy plan funding. In addition to the general and employee benefits funds, JCPRD also has an enterprise fund that manages a nationally acclaimed enterprise operation providing top quality services in recreation, culture, education at or below market cost. JCPRD takes great care in utilizing provided resources that yield high satisfaction and sustainable results, because we know for every dollar that is invested in JCPRD services yields a $5 return in economic value and benefits. For the general fund, through dedicated legacy plan funds, JCPRD respectfully requests one full-time position within the general fund to be budgeted within the existing mill rate. The senior park worker that we're requesting will be essential for working closely with the team to develop and maintain the 240 acres of parkland that will be developed and open, named Camp Branch Park. The proposed budget includes adding 4.75 new FTE positions to the enterprise fund. The positions requested will address support needed to manage the continued growth in the JCPRD Enterprise Fund. The first position, a digital content and accessibility specialist, will support strategic priorities to improve accessibility, strengthen digital communications infrastructure, and enhance operational efficiencies across departments. The application supervisor will be critical in aligning strategic priorities to leverage technology and enhance operational resilience in an ever-changing digital environment. To support our thriving food and beverage, and I mean thriving food and beverage operations, we are requesting a concession lead that will provide on-site supervisor assistance to ensure operating consistencies in service while providing accountability and support to our concession staff. To meet the increasing demands, the recreation coordinator position will focus on developing, expanding, and supporting recreational program needs in our southern region of Johnson County. And finally, the recreation specialist position was identified as part of the recently accepted 50-plus department strategic plan. This position will provide leadership support, sustain program quality, and manage department program growth as our aging yet active population continues to grow in Johnson County. The budgeted impact of these requests will be covered through the enterprise fund and not rely on tax support. JCPRD's 2027 CIP-CRP plans continue to focus on priorities set forth by our citizens and is in accord with the legacy plan. To highlight a few, in 2027, this will include the Camp Branch Regional Park Phase 1 development, beginning Phase 1B improvements to theater in the park, multiple trail developments or extensions within existing parks such as Big Bull Creek Park, Heritage Park, and Shawnee Mission Park. Planning and design for Phase 2 development for for Ernie Miller Nature Center, as well as Lexington Lake Park. And then we will also be addressing the 80th Terrace roundabout or intersection in Shawnee Mission Park to make some safety improvements there. With approximately 50% of JCPRD's general fund budget allocated to CIP-CRP, we will continue to take care of our existing assets by addressing necessary improvements, which include trail improvements, picnic shelters, playgrounds, restroom facilities, etc. Fulfillment of the board-adopted safety plan will continue, along with addressing critical technology needs and ADA improvements. I should note that in addition to funding new and existing projects, almost over $11 million of this budget will support previous debt-funded projects, which allowed key projects to be advanced and made available to the community earlier than available funding would have allowed for. On behalf of all of us at JCPRD, please know that we appreciate the tremendous leadership, support, and trust you provide to allow us to fulfill our mission. This team, the best team in the country, is engaged with our community and ready to reach for the community's park and recreation vision. With that, I'll pause to see if you have any questions for me, for Commissioner Haig, or the staff that's with us today.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you to the staff that's here today. Just like the library, we could talk for a long time about all the great things happening in parks, so I'll just say thank you. You all are the best of us. We appreciate everything that you do.
Thank you, sir.
Let me ask a couple of specific questions as we just dive in here. Mid-America, Mr. Haig mentioned, or Commissioner Haig, excuse me, no insult. Mid-America, we talked about the ribbon cutting ceremony. It's very much in play, so to speak. Can you tell me a little bit about the economic impact that we expected and what we're receiving there at Mid-America?
Yes, sir. So we're just completing at Mid-America West, and so some of that data will be coming in following this year. However, I will tell you that it's exceeding expectations as well. But for Mid-America, which we had completed construction on, in our first year post-construction, we exceeded the forecasted economic impacts that we would have with the community as a result. In fact, we had two sources measure that economic impact, and with both of them, they were it was nearly $19 million just for those 12 fields alone within that facility. Operationally, we're also not operating at a negative in those facilities anymore. In fact, we are operating at a plus gain and have been putting those dollars into a reserve to be able to continue to reinvest in those facilities such as turf replacement and so forth. From a concession standpoint, I can tell you, I mentioned the food and beverage continues to just accelerate. The service is better, facilities are better, the staff's doing an amazing job. In fact, at Mid-America West, we did more in revenue in the first 3 weeks in May before we even finished with construction than we've done collectively throughout the year, any other year at that facility. So we're packing it with people, we're making memories and just having great results all the way around, including economic impact.
Thank you, and I appreciate you mentioning that 55% of the operations of Parks and Rec are non-tax supported.
Yes, sir.
Whether enterprise or otherwise. You mentioned the economic impact that $1 invested leads to $5 impact. What is the economic impact of JCPRD?
Yeah, thank you for that question. That really comes from a study that we recently did as part of the Legacy Plan update that we worked with the Trust for Public Land. The economic value and economic impact of this community at that time, which is a little bit dated now, but was nearly $280 million.
$280 million annually?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. And, Commissioner Haig mentioned, and we're talking a lot about the CIP and about the parks investments. That's great, but the culture and recreation is also incredibly top-notch. In the last 2 months, you've received 2 national awards on museum exhibits, both for Ripples and for Redlined, and I imagine democracy is soon to come. But he mentioned acquisition of a facility for childcare, 100 slots, 100 opportunities to be served through childcare and arts access. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, we're thrilled to be able to react to an opportunity in Northeast Johnson County. So a former Montessori school site off of 87th Street, very close to the Arts and Heritage Center, just south of South Lake Park. That piece of real estate became available. JCPRD has successfully entered into a contract, a purchase agreement for that property at appraised value, which we had appraised. It really falls in line with the Legacy Plan and the following Children's Services Strategic Plan, the first of its kind, to provide additional opportunities to care for our children and families. This is an incredible opportunity in which we think we will be able to serve between 100 and 120 children per day, perhaps all day. And on top of that, have an opportunity to really lean into the fine and performing arts programming while child care services are not being provided. So it's really exciting. We've got a lot to do there to get it open, but we're going through and doing our due diligence to make sure that we can close this deal.
Hats off to you. That's a really exciting one. It's not just the parks, but these are known community needs.
Yes.
That impact everything that we do, especially for young families. And as a parent of young children, I know that that's a struggle for so many families. So that's incredibly exciting. I'm looking at your KPIs. I'm sorry, Commissioner Ashcraft, to steal this one. And you have one that is in the yellow red, and that's percentage of legacy plan funded. I appreciate that you include that as a metric. There are known needs within the legacy fund. Is that fair to say?
There are. The update that we completed in early 2024 indicated that at our current funding rate, we're about 46% funded. We've had a couple of master plans done since then, so we're actually slipping a bit below that at this point in time. These identified needs and interests are really shaped by the community. And so there's still a gap. This is a 15-year strategic plan. We're funded at a rate to be able to achieve this in 30-plus years. Of course, our team continues to seek many different opportunities and partnerships and so forth to advance everything that we can that is not funded. But we've got a lot of work to do, and so that's a metric that we're keeping a pretty close eye on.
But I appreciate that you keep the metric, especially given the success that you had and the economic and cultural impact on our communities that we want to be able to unlock for not only these living generations to be able to experience now, but for those to come over time. I know, like us, you are statutorily limited in how you're able to go ahead and collect funds, but I'd hope we could continue to explore how best we can unlock that legacy plan and get that metric into the green here in future years.
I'm comfortable saying that I think the JCPRD Board of Park and Recreation Commissioners would welcome an opportunity to sit down and really just discuss and explore any and all possible options to help us advance some of these unfunded needs.
I appreciate that. Commissioner Allenbrand.
Thank you, Chair. And I want you to know you have my support in helping to get that legacy plan through. In fact, Commissioner, I appreciate all the work that you and your board have as volunteers on that board and all the work that you've done. And you have my apologies because we really need to listen to the people of Johnson County and what our needs and services are. And you have my commitment to keep working on getting that. I also want to say the picture at the end, Commissioner Myers has a bigger smile than anybody else on there. So anyway, I feel like I've had a little part of what's going on with the park since I was employed there at one time with the 50-plus program. I want you to know I feel like that the concession stands, they have the best hot dogs and nachos. And maybe that's what Commissioner Myers is smiling about. I also am truly excited about the performing arts and the before and after school. I mean, you know, you lead in the state of Kansas, and my district is in such need of having that before and after daycare with that park that needs to get opened up. And you know that, you see the waiting list. And I'm going to ask the chair if he would help me go to the city of DeSoto to see if we can find some areas there for some housing. With the park being there and just with what's going on in DeSoto, I'm hoping I can challenge them to help us with some housing, to get you some volunteers, but also, and I know the chair will help me. I also want to say that just seeing the social feedback and seeing the crowds that were at the theater in the park with the TV, and just hearing about the concessions from people, that I project that I want to hear a projection of the TV, that is going to help pay for itself. And I'm already hearing about what other type of activities. So I thank my fellow commissioners for us helping provide that. Indeed. And also all the man hours that have gone into the work that your staff and the leaders that you became in being the first to create the site and using your parks to do that. Because you not only have Meadowbrook tied up with everything going on there, but also this. And that's a lot of man hours. It's a lot of volunteers. It's a lot a lot of stuff going on. I do want you to know several of my Rotarian friends are volunteering, and a couple of the Honeywell staff, and they're having a great time. So thank you for providing all that. And I think with that, Chair, I just also, I know one more thing, the millions of people that are visiting, and I'm not sure that you even have, I think there's probably more than that, of people going there. And again, it's meeting everyone's individual needs by having that available. So thank you for your service.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a few questions, Mr. Chairman, but before, I'd like to just have a moment of personal privilege. Mr. Chairman, I don't know if other members of the board have had this experience with Jeff personally, but over the years, from time to time, we have constituents who have questions, issues, concerns. And Jeff, Mr. Stewart, you have always been exceptionally personally responsive to those. Thank you for that.
My pleasure. Thank you.
That means a lot to me, but it means a lot to those constituents, because a man of your title, reaching out and taking that personal touch goes a long way. So you are truly an example, a good leader, and your presenter previous to that had indicated you as a mentor. Mr. Stewart, you are. So,
Thank you, sir. I
very
appreciate
good.
that. My pleasure.
So having said that, few questions.
Yes, sir.
I was looking at some of your metrics, and the chairman stole one of them, and I'm glad he did. But one of the mission talks about enriching the community, and part of that is the culture. And I was just wondering, you initiated a public arts program 3 years ago?
It was actually about 5 years, a little over 5 years ago.
Okay. So what's the annual budget for that?
Yeah, so up to this point, the contributions that the JCPRD budget makes towards that art program is a 0.5% of our capital improvement plan projects. There's some exclusions in there, but roughly 0.5%. I would have, if the amount varies from year to year, depending on what that is. There's also a significant amount that is raised through grants, through private donations and so forth. Even the most recent Meadowbrook Park Festival, that was really done in the spirit of supporting that particular program, and there was a net gain of $13,000, give or take, just from that one evening alone. So it's a combination of things that feed into that. It's really been received quite remarkably well through our community, and really recognized nationally, even in some of the ways we've been able to give folks that are visiting in our spaces a new experience and connecting them with nature and so forth. So that's how we're funding it currently.
Well, I was trying to find the KPI that captures that. I didn't see it, so maybe sometime you could educate me a little bit in terms of how to interpret that. In your KPIs, you marked somewhat of a concern in terms of employee satisfaction being 80-something% off of 91. But historically, you've been in the mid-80s.
Yes, sir.
That 91 was almost an outlier. So why are you saying that now? Because you've returned pretty much to where you have historically been, good numbers. But why have you marked that as an area of not despair, but of concern? Is there something going on?
Not really a concern. I might note that the 91% from the previous year was a pulse survey. So that was an abbreviated survey. So really, if I compare the most recent results, I have to go back 24 months in comparison. We're actually up 0.4% in comparison to the full-blown survey. Not to say that I'm concerned. I'm actually quite pleased with the culture that our team has collectively shaped. Admittedly, our team is intentional and strategic about diving into some of the details of those results to see what areas we have to make some improvements to maybe make employee engagement results even a little bit better. And so we do that. We will be visiting with our managers and supervisors to dive into some of those recent details to identify some priorities we can focus on. Not really concerned.
Yeah, Mr. Stewart, yeah, I would agree. The digital dashboard, since you marked it as yellow, just brought it to my attention. And then finally, on the ADA metric that you have, I'm a little bit confused about the goal. You've got number of projects. I mean, what are we looking at in terms of, are we marching to zero? And if we are, what's the timeline you're looking at?
I really appreciate that question, Commissioner. In 2019, we actually did a full-blown ADA assessment. We worked with a consultant that specializes in that. We assessed all of our parks and facilities. And so there's quite a lengthy list of what we'll call barriers that are within our system. So this is an important measurement for us because we are dedicating dollars and energy to remove barriers. And so we're tracking every one of those things that have been identified. I don't know that we'll ever get to zero because things change over time as well, but we're very intentional about making all of our spaces more accessible.
But from the measure, I can't tell. Are you 50% there, 90% there?
Oh, I see.
5% there?
We are, I don't believe we're 50% there. I would have to dive into the data with our team to see
Thank
where
you.
we're at.
Thank you.
Thank you for your questions.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I know on that subject, we have made marked improvement.
Yes.
Each of the last several years. So I know we are progressing and doing what I think is a very good job of trying to get to that zero goal, but it takes time. And, I won't get into a long diatribe on Parks and Recreation because I've done it before. I think everybody knows my feelings. But I will say this, as I've said previously, if we give Johnson County Parks and Recreation District the support, they will come through each and every time as they've shown over and over and over again. And I know at our recent board sharing with Parks and Recreation and ourselves, one of the things that Parks and Recreation has talked about for a while to try to help meet some of these needs that we have for future, we talked about going to the voters for a mill levy, a small mill levy increase, and the Board of County Commissioners said no at that time. And I'm hoping that we can find a way to help get some additional funding through whatever means that might be so that Parks and Recreation can continue to build on what they've already done. I think in today's world, Parks and Recreation, and again, when I say Parks and Recreation, sometimes just people think about sports or they think about trails, but our Parks and Recreation Department is so much more than that. When you start talking about childcare and you start talking about museums and you talk about Ernie Miller Park and you talk about all the encompassing work that Johnson County Parks and Recreation does, again, there's that need for resources, and those resources are going to be something that our residents are going to be proud of and excited about. And my take on it is that that's what people want. And so I was hopeful that we would be able to move forward. But again, I hope there is some type of option that we can take a look at and work with our board and Parks and Recreation to try to find a way to give them some resources that are going to help them be able to meet needs in the Parks and Recreation Department for our residents.
Thank you. First of all, I ditto to what Commissioner Ashcraft said. You are amazing in responding to constituent resident concerns. You're almost too responsive, like, oh, no, you don't need to respond right now. Well, you can wait till Monday, but you have, triple stars on that, so thank you for that.
Appreciate it.
I did have two questions.
Yes.
One is in regard to the KPIs, in regard to the percentage of budget from non-tax sources. In 2025, which is, of course, the most recent full year of information, you have 55%. But then I see it goes down to, you're estimating 48% in 26 and 48 in 27. Is that because you're anticipating something happening that is going to change some of those non-tax sources? Is it something we should be looking at or be concerned about?
That's a very keen eye and a great question. Actually, it fluctuates a little bit from time to time when we have use of any kind of reserves. And so that will make that number shift a little bit. Maybe an oversummary, if we're around that 50-50 mark, then we feel pretty good about where we're standing in tax-supported services and non-tax supported services through fees and charges and so forth. So that little spike that you see in our most recent results was just really a result of some use of reserves within the enterprise fund. We have worked really, really hard over the last 6-7 years to make sure that that enterprise fund is sustainable and that fund is able to reinvest in some of even the capital needs and the major program needs that we have. The Montessori school site is a great example. The purchase price for it, we're not using the general fund dollars for that. We're using enterprise fund dollars to make the purchase of that real estate.
Well, thank
Great
you.
question.
I just want to make sure it was nothing we needed to be
No concern.
concerned about, that it
No,
was going to keep going down. And then another question I have is, both JCPRD and Johnson County Libraries have foundations, and they have both have incredible core of volunteers. Where does the foundation funding come into the budget, or is that something that's for special projects only? Can you explain a little more about that relationship and how that benefits residents of
Sure.
Johnson County?
I'll do my best here with that. So the foundation actually has its own separate budget that they are operating from, and there is a foundation board that oversees that with our development director that is a staff member of JCPRD. Obviously, there's a connection, and we weave in together on supporting those efforts. It's all JCPRD services that benefit from that. But that is a separate budget that we manage and maintain with the foundation. And they have been making some remarkable shifts to the better in terms of how much they're supporting, the Public Art Fund being one of those. Also, some great success helping us with some grant applications successfully. So, but it is a separate budget managed by that board. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just, I'm going to save my compliments to the end, but I'm going to start with a question for you. In the Park and Recreation Enterprise budget, which is on P19 of our detailed information, just a question. There's a line called Other Revenues. It went up about 101%. Can you give me a little bit of idea what makes up the other revenues?
I'm actually going to look over towards our Chief Finance Officer to maybe help me with that. Noel, do you have that handy for that question? Okay. Okay. Noel had responded that a portion of that is coming from use of reserves within that enterprise operation.
Okay, because I know the vast amount of the enterprise revenue is coming from your charges for service. I was
That's
just,
correct.
because there was such a growth in the in the other revenue category. I just wanted to understand a little bit. So I will say, for many, us, my family included, employment oftentimes is why we come and make Johnson County home. Quality of life is why we stay. And so our libraries and our parks and recreations are an important component because they're also some of the few components left, right, in our community that, for the most part, don't have an entrance fee to enjoy. So I want to commend that you've taken to heart over time the quality of the product that is presented for all of us to enjoy. I especially appreciate your intentional strategic planning around acquisition of lands along streamways, not only to be a part of maintaining and keeping our streamways clean, but also as a way of connecting our parks through trail systems. And on that note, I will say Memorial Weekend, my husband and I had the opportunity to do about a 21-mile bike ride, only about maybe a mile or two on streets, because of that intentionality of connecting so many of our parks through trail systems, which makes us all safer. So I appreciate that. And then one other question or thought, or just something I'd like to discuss with you further, with the presentation indicating of the purchase of the Montessori school and the part of town that it's going to be in and that opportunity. I'd love to talk to you a little bit about, because not too far away, I believe, from that site, of course, is Growing Futures, a Head Start program. And I know they've been having space capacity issues for a while. So I'd love to find time to have a conversation about maybe opportunities for collaboration.
We would welcome that conversation as well as a conversation with them directly.
Awesome. Great. I can help make that happen.
Let's do it.
All right. Thank you.
Further questions or comments for Mr. Stewart or Mr. Hague, or Commissioner Hague? We'll say thank you all to the team. We appreciate the work very much.
Thank you very much for your support and for the time today.
I do want to get through the opioid settlement funds proposed recommendations before lunch. We should, for the closed captioners and everybody's sake, take a 5-minute break. So we're going to do that at this time, if that's okay with staff.
Yes, and I am not sure on Tim Sierra's schedule, but with Chief Morley here and the others, I would almost want to flip those and see if we could get Consolidated Fire District 2 before lunch, and then that way he can go back as well. But I can check with Tim on his availability.
I think we all recognize we're in for a long day anyway, so if we need to get a couple more in before a longer
Okay.
break, let's take a shorter break right now for the closed captioners. We'll be back in approximately 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Sorry. the clerks ready? They're matching outfits today. All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for your patience. We are here, we are going to go to Mr. Dapp at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As we noted, we're going to skip ahead a little bit in our presentation to Consolidated Fire District Number 1. Did want to provide just some additional information. Obviously, we set this the governing board for Fire District Number 1, which is why they're presenting today. We do have plans for Consolidated Fire District Number 2 and Northwest Consolidated Fire District to be here on July 16th to talk about the board-approved maximum expenditure budget for those two districts. And then we have a committee of the whole scheduled on August 13th for all three of the districts to approve their, or review their budgets ahead of the September 3rd budget approval. So because we're setting as the board, we're going to hear a little bit more detail a little bit earlier. The rest of the boards for CFD2 and Northwest are going through this exercise right now, and we'll have that information July 16th.
Thank you very much for the preview. We'll turn it at this time to to Robin.
Yes, and I'm going to turn it over to Chief Francis.
Okay.
Jim Francis.
Fire Services Administrator, Jim Francis.
Good afternoon, and I've got Chief Morley here with us today, so I'm going to speed through this relatively quickly because I know you guys have got an action-packed day here. But
There's a joke about that.
and I should just state that the budget for Consolidated 1 will be presented with greater detail at 4 o'clock today to the advisory board. And we hope to get their input and feedback on this budget, and we'll bring that feedback back to this body at the July 16th meeting. So just to give you an overview here, we're anticipating a somewhat flat operational general fund mill levy with a slight decrease in the bond levies, but around a 10 to 11% assessed valuation increase is what we've experienced. We're starting, we started this year with about 4.6 million in reserves. As you know, we completed all the finances with the new Consolidated District 1, with this being the first official year. Revenue for 2027, beside ad valorem, we've got fees for service, wildland deployments. We've got contracts with both Johnson County and Miami County. Can you advance that? Okay. In the 2027 proposed budget, we're looking at a 3% salary increases for staff, which is consistent with our pay plan. We would add 3 new firefighter, full-time firefighter positions on shift. We discussed this last year and the year before as kind of a 3-year plan to bring us up to the staffing level that meets our goal for to reduce overtime and ensure that we have minimum staffing requirements met on trucks. So this would be next year would be year 3 of a 3-year plan to get us to the staffing model we need to be at. So that's part of it. One of the largest expenses that we're encountering for next year's budget is health insurance. We received nearly a 30% increase in the 2026 budget. Right now, we have an August 1st renewal. We have tentative information of a 28.9% increase for that August 1st renewal. Of course, then we have 5 months to fund out of this budget, which is an unknown because that doesn't renew until next August 1st. So we're anticipating a large increase, potentially $450,000 increase is what we're looking at in that item alone. We have funds for budgeted transfer to capital improvement. We have tremendous capital needs. We have an aging fleet. We're going to be before this body in the coming months with a fleet replacement schedule and proposal. So we've got approximately $750,000 planned capital improvement expenditures in next year's budget that would be funded from existing reserve funds. So, like I said, we're going to provide greater detail at 4 p.m. today to the advisory board. We'll be back before the advisory board on July 2nd, and then we'll be before this body with greater budget detail on July the 16th, and stand for questions.
Thank you very much. Questions for our Fire Services Administrator?
Thank you. And Chief Francis, I appreciate the diligent work you guys are doing and the difficulty sometimes in timing, right? Because I know this has been a little bit difficult timing this time around with the new consolidated fire district and the new advisory board and being able to line everything up as you would have liked. And I apologize, I had to step away for some family matters and so did not get to connect with you prior to today's meeting. When I had previously gone through the material, I had circled an area with a question, and that is the assessed valuation increase, the estimated 10 to 11% increase. I'm not sure I'm understanding that because I know appraised valuation this past cycle has been more like around a 5-8% increase. So I feel like I'm missing an element of information on this data point.
Yeah, there's actually a great question. So there's that reevaluation growth, which is that 4 to 5% growth of the existing properties. Then there's also tremendous new growth.
Okay,
in that district.
okay.
The one unique component to this particular district is the exempt properties that began to be developed 11 years ago, 10 years ago, are now starting to come onto the tax roll. And so we had projected that there would be actually an increase in assessed valuation for this district as those properties that existed are now going to be taxed. This is the first year that we're actually seeing that change where those properties that have been in existence for 10 years are now paying the full property tax bill, which tends to benefit and increase that assessed valuation growth for the district.
So I would maybe recommend in the future, because I think that's a very clear explanation on how we get to estimated 10 to 11% increase in assessed valuation. Because these are public documents and not everyone has the benefit of either attending or listening to these meetings, if they just pulled up that information, they could make an assumption like I did that there was a variance. So if there's any way in future documents we could just, because we are continuing to grow in the very district you're talking about, just to asterisk that and say that's a combination of assessed valuation of existing property, which is averaging X, and the influx of new property coming onto tax rolls as it gets developed, which is Y, and that leads to the final result, which is this, because then we are going to see a variance in that area of what your access to resources looks like, other than areas that have been fully built out and are not seeing that type of new growth. So I appreciate the explanation.
Commissioner Ashcraft?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just going to offer a quick add-on to Commissioner Brewer. That's a good observation because as these tax-exempt opportunities have fallen off and they're added to the tax rolls, they're paying their fair share, which for fire services is long overdue because you've had the burden of carrying those responsibilities without the funding. So that's very good. Chief, or Mr. Francis, 3 new firefighters. Is there a standard in terms of the number of firefighters per truck that we employ, not just in this district, but in the districts that submit their budget to us?
There is. I'm probably best to turn that over to Chief Morley. He can probably answer that better than I can, but the NFPA standard, not everybody follows it, but I'll let Chief Morley expand on that.
So Trick Morley, Fire Chief, Fire District 1. So we would rely on NFPA 1710 and 1720. Those are the staffing standards for, the nationally accepted staffing standards. And in that, it's going to recommend that there's 4 people on a fire engine and then 5 people on an aerial device. That's a standard that we look to, and we would love to comply with. I would say that that's a standard that a lot of agencies struggle to comply with. And really for us, what it results in is we're looking to establish what we call an effective fire force on an incident. And we know the actions that need to take place immediately, and we know how many people that takes. So you can send more fire trucks to establish that effective fire force, or Or if you had more people on a fire truck, it would actually require less pieces of equipment to respond to that because you could establish your effective fire force with less equipment traveling down the road.
And is there a fire force implementation plan? I'm making this up. I'm not sure what you would call it in terms of the fire services that report through to us and the cost benefit of that, because there obviously are costs involved, but there also are benefits. Has that analysis been done, or will it be done for our fire departments?
So we do measure typically the time it takes for us to establish that effective fire force. And honestly, the reason that we can comply with that is through our mutual aid partners. So we know that it's going to be multiple jurisdictions, some that would report to this board, some that don't, that it requires today. So we've addressed it as a county-wide system through a standardized response, a model procedure for a standardized response. So we would take the assumption that everybody is staffing their fire engine with 3 people, which is pretty much the standard. And so we know that for a single-family residential structure fire, we have to respond 5 heavy apparatus to that in 2 battalion chiefs. So that's how we've addressed it here for our system in the county.
Very good. Two other quick questions. The dental and health insurance, Mr. Francis, have you been working with Mr. Christensen in terms of those costs and those
I'm working with
projections?
him as we speak on this matter.
Okay, very good. And then finally, is there a plan to develop an internal capital reserve fund to meet long-term capital equipment
Yes,
needs?
that is something that I have been working on. Chief and I have been working with Mark Dapp from the budget office and Ted on that, and trying to identify what is the number we need to transfer every year
So
to
is there anything in
maintain
this
that.
budget that reflects trying to capture that?
This budget's going to contain roughly $750,000, $800,000 in transfer to reserves or truck project fund for, we also budgeted $425,000 this year and $200,000 transfer from reserves to help fund those future capital needs as well.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Commissioner Allen Bryant.
Thank you, Chair. Well, first of all, I want to thank Chief Trigg and all of you for all the work you've done, Chief Francis. It's been a long haul, but we're finally getting there, and I know it's also want to thank the advisory board for all their work. I would highly suggest, and I want to thank the budget department, Mark Dabb and Robin and Brent Christensen, because you're not reflecting in this how much you have financially saved. And I would suggest that you might show that, because it's very significant in what has been accomplished. You see all the expenses, but there's nothing about what you've done. Because if we didn't have those savings along with this, it would look a lot worse. So anyway, I would just suggest that, but thank you for all your work.
I have a question. Real quickly, on the health and dental insurance, are you part of the county's pool for that health and dental insurance?
No.
Are you on your own pool just
We
for
are on our
consolidated
own,
one?
the fire district is a standalone there. We have worked with county staff in the previous 2 or 3 years to see if it made sense for us to move towards that county pool. And we haven't got to that point yet. I think we're closing the gap. Why we're working with Brent today to find out what those numbers look like today.
Well, I encourage you to just at least continue to explore what that looks like, and whether or not it be with the county or with other fire districts, just to broaden that pool and try to bring down some of those
We have done that in the past, and the fire districts over the years have met to even explore cooperative agreements between the districts. We are bound by some state legislation on that. We are working with other fire districts to see what they're doing. So that is a topic we look at every year, and we're trying to figure out what is going to work best for us.
Well, and we won't go into the details of that statutory issue today, but I would encourage you to maybe connect with us, connect with whoever's going to be our legislative liaison for the next session, if there are improvements that we can make in legislation that would allow more efficient health and dental insurance or other fire services between districts, I'd definitely like to help you advocate to the state to make those common sense changes.
Will do, thank you.
Commissioner Burr?
I appreciate, Chair, for letting me come back to a couple of things. One, a couple commendations and a question. I full-throatedly support your comments, Commissioner Allenbrand, on the savings. As a matter of fact, as I recall last year after the consolidation, were some lowering of mill levies. So it even, immediately demonstrated some of the savings and efficiencies that could be identified with the consolidation. I also want to commend, having attended a number of the body's meetings over time, I really appreciate, Mr. Francis, the really deep work that you've done in looking at all the different contractual collaborative relationships in the geographic area in Johnson County in this district, but also going into Miami County, because we do a lot of that. And you've been very intentional, I believe, in also cleaning up those little gaps where we're servicing an area that's really surrounded by another district and getting those intentionally cleaned up, because that all leads to better response and better service overall. And that's a lot of heavy lifting that just makes all of us better efficient and better responsive. But also you have found very creative ways in lending those collaborative relationships so that the coverage is there, but also that we're fiscally responsible. And that would be a very big slide just to show all that, but I agree with Commissioner Allenbrand. I think it would be instructive for the whole body to be a little bit aware of some of that work that's been done and how those relationships work. And then finally, I know when they did the consolidation that on someone's bill that shows the different mill levy taxes, that debt stayed with the original districts. Has there been much confusion that you've heard about the different lines on somebody's bill? And have you guys been able to navigate if you get calls with questions? And I don't know if that's a you guys or a Treasury and taxation question.
I'm not aware of any confusion. I'm trying to think back if I fielded any communication regarding that change this year. I don't believe I have.
And as those debts are paid down on those bond issues, they'll go off of the bills.
Yeah, until those bond issues drop off, the tax bill may look confusing to some, but the tax bill won't show the other ones if they're not in that district. If you're in District 2's area, it's not going to show the District 1.
Right.
When you look at the published budget document, it's going to show a whole list of them. Well, don't add them all together, and it's important we have to list a note there that, no, people aren't going to pay that, but there's really no other way to do that.
No, and I got a few emails last year, but thanks to your work, I was well equipped to answer them, so thank you.
All right. Chief?
Thank you.
Chief? Thank you all very much. We'll move at this time back in your schedule to the Johnson County Prevention and Recovery Coalition. We welcome Tim DeWeese.
Thank you. Tim DeWeese with the Mental Health Center. As you all may recall, last year, the Board of County Commissioners designated the Prevention and Recovery Coalition as a coordinating body for the Johnson County opioid settlement funds. And this overview and set of recommendations today for the 2027 opioid settlement funds was developed by the Johnson County Prevention and Recovery Coalition, along with, in coordination with, a work group that you all established, as well as county staff, and I'll talk a little bit about that here in a minute. I want to provide a bit of a brief overview of the Prevention and Recovery Coalition, but it really began in March of 2022 when a group of community stakeholders came together to address the opioid epidemic and fentanyl misuse and the occurring deaths within our community. And so through that process, This group has developed 4 active work groups to carry out the work of the coalition. The first group is the Prevention and Education Work Group, Harm Reduction Work Group, the Trauma and Root Cause Work Group, and then finally the Treatment and Recovery Work Group. Also, just to remind you all that the BOCC allocated $100,000 annually for a half-time FTE to support the work of the Prevention Coalition. And I mention that because I'll come back to it in a minute. And then, as I said, had asked the RPC to take over the work of coordinating and coming up with a set of recommendations for future uses for the settlement funds. I could spend, next slide, I could spend quite a bit of time talking a little bit about, next slide, I could spend a lot of time talking about the accomplishments of the PRC, provided you a few on this slide, but just to say that in 2024, the coalition was recognized as the Coalition of the Year by the Kansas Prevention Coalition. The You Never Know Fentanyl Awareness Campaign this year has won its second what's referred to as a Philly Award from the nonprofit Connect. And then most importantly, and the piece that I think I'm most proud about is that the coalition was asked to participate in some benchmark study. And basically, this further just recognized at a national level the coalition by being invited to participate in this study conducted by George Mason University Center of Social Service Research. And it highlights Johnson County's approach to opioid settlement fund planning and implementation. So we'll know more as we learn about the study and the outcomes of the study, but pretty neat that the coalition and Johnson County government was identified and asked to participate in this benchmarking study across the nation. As also a reminder, the opioid settlement agreement, both state and local funds, and so this slide indicates how the funds are dispersed through the Kansas Fight Addictions Fund, and then also through the municipalities' Fight Addictions Funds, which then are the pieces of the opioid settlement funds that come to the county. I look at when we start to talk about that work group that was created last summer. The BOCC asked this work group to get together. It was made up of 3 commissioners, Commissioner Fast, Commissioner Brewer, and Commissioner Hanslick, along with staff of the county. And that work group landed on utilizing something that we call the Institute of Medicine's Continuum of Care model. It was used to visually map out the services available within our community, and it really is a common language. It creates a common language and a visible framework for us to be able to utilize and demonstrate how these funds are being used within our community. Additionally, the work group then incorporated some principles from the Johns Hopkins Principles of Use Funds, which are really intended to help states and local governments spend opioid settlement funds wisely, following a set of principles. And those principles are to spend the money to save lives, to use evidence in guiding those decisions, invest in youth prevention, focus on racial equality, and then develop a fair and transparent process for deciding where funds should be spent. So when we look at that and take this model and then demonstrate all of the allocations within Johnson County, what you'll see, and this is for 2025, all of the opioid settlement funds that were allocated to Johnson County by all funding resources. So it's a combination of the funds that came to the county, but it's also a combination of all of the funds that were allocated to different agencies within Johnson County. what you can see by this graphic is that there is the largest allocation to the treatment domain, which indicates that we are well suited to help connect individuals to treatment. However, it also demonstrates that we are significantly underfunded in the recovery domain. Simply put, we don't currently adequately resource the help and support to sustain an individual in their recovery. And why I mention that is because when we get to the recommended areas, we are intentionally focusing on those recovery places or domains. So when we look at the specific proposed recommendations, we're looking at continuing the substance use counselor position within the adult crisis residential center. And as you look at each of these, it'll show whether it's in what domain it's in, and then also whether it was previously funded in 2026. So this was funded in 2026. We are also recommending continuing the 0.5 FTE for the juvenile diversion officer. We have also are recommending that we actually increase the prevention coordinator from a 0.5 to a full-time FTE so that we can continue the work of the coalition, and then also take on the work required to continue to coordinate future allocations as we go along in this method, and then also be able to bring back some KPIs that can demonstrate that, yeah, here's what we recommended, and here are the outcomes that we see. So that is it was previously funded, but only at a half FTE. So we're recommending that it go to a full FTE. We're not asking for an additional FTE through this process. We will have an FTE currently within the mental health center that will be able to utilize and be able to expand their ability to do that work. And then in the two areas that are newly funded that we're recommending is 1.5 FTEs for peer responders or recovery coaches. Again, while I indicate that it's 1.5 FTEs, I'm not recommending or asking that we create those FTEs at this moment. There are entities within our community that provide recovery coaches and peer responders. And so I want to evaluate the best way to utilize those funds. Would it be better to contract with a provider that exists within the community to provide those services in conjunction with the mental health center? Or is it something that the mental health center is going to need to provide, and then we would come back and let you know that and ask for those 1.5 positions? But I wanted to take a look at all the options available before I just automatically suggested that we create 1.5 positions. And then the second area is in recovery housing. And we are recommending that we put $50,000 into recovery housing. And the reason that we really focus on that is when people leave typically residential treatment, and that's the most successful. And they need to then move into like a sobering house. Since they've been in treatment, likely not currently employed, therefore likely don't have funds. And what typically happens is the individual has to move back into their previous setting where they were using, and the likelihood of them reusing is high before they can actually get into a sober living facility. What these housing recovery funds would be used for is be able to help people move immediately from residential services directly into the sober living homes, therefore hopefully increasing the amount of recovery and decreasing the possibility of relapse in that area. And then we set aside, again, $127,000 roughly for prevention and recovery initiatives. We are continuing to recommend that we give $100,000 to the United Community Services Substance Use Fund, as we did last year. And then a second, another area that we are focused on that was not previously funded in 2026 is through emergency services, and that is to purchase the use of bag valve masks and a Soter device, which allows individuals that are responding to overdoses to be able to provide life-saving measures in a safe way. And they are planning to utilize these devices, collect data on the effectiveness, how many they used, and then we'll be able to report that back and determine whether or not this was something that we want to continue to do in out years. And then finally, working with the Department of Health and Environment, specifically the Medical Examiner's Office, providing $11,000 for opioid test supplies so that we can ensure that we're getting good data with regard to deaths by overdose. So this is the set of recommendations that comes to just under the $600,000 mark that we had earmarked for 2027. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Tim. Thank you very much also to your team that's joined us today. Very important work. I appreciate it. Taking a step back to the big picture, the KDHE dashboard is not incredibly user-friendly. So as I try to understand where we are in the trends of opioid overdoses and deaths, it's a little esoteric to me right now. I understand that the trend is that, correct me if I'm wrong, deaths and overdoses are decreasing.
That is correct.
Which is great. Is there any other particular data points that you can share just generally about the challenge, whether in Johnson County or Northeast Kansas generally?
Do you have some information on that?
Sorry for the pop quiz.
Yeah, no.
Good morning or afternoon, I'm not really sure, but Sierra Wright with Johnson County Mental Health. So Chairman, I think another metric that we often look at is related to naloxone deployments. And so our local MedAct does a great job of having that information publicly available. And so I believe it was in 2024, previously, you had to get naloxone through a prescription, or only healthcare professionals were administering it. And so that changed in 2024, which I think impacts the data a little bit, in my opinion, in a positive way, because now naloxone, the life-saving medicine, is in the hands of more folks. But what we've seen is a downward trend in what our MedAct folks have had to utilize in terms of naloxone deployment. So in 2023, there was 282 deployments, and in 2024, there were 249, and then in 2025, 205, and then so far this year has been 73 deployments. So I think that trending downward tells us that there is less likelihood that MedAct is encountering those folks in an emergency situation needing naloxone, which is positive, but we also don't know how frequently folks might be using that in the community at home, because we have increased access. So one of the challenging things with the opioid crisis is trying to get really defined metrics to measure it, because while we've made some improvements and things, it's kind of always changing.
Well, thank you. I think that's a great note. And let me bounce into a different question that I had. I know you have a recommendation here for opioid testing supplies. That's great. We have partnered with good folks to make Narcan available in various locations. I assume that continues, whether it be parks, libraries, et cetera. Is there any need for continued partnerships or increasing those partnerships? I just want to make sure we're not missing out on those kind of opportunities.
So I'll definitely let Sierra chime in on that, but I think the quick answer to that is there's always a need for continued partnerships, and I think that's what is the beautiful thing about having this within the coalition is that we are open to inviting anyone to become a part of that coalition, and we've had a number of outside entities become a part of that. So any opportunity that we have to partner with any organization, whether that to save lives when it comes to the opioid and fentanyl issue, we're going to take that opportunity. And I think the best way that happens is through the PRC.
No, that's great.
Anything to add?
Just very briefly, I was just going to say that we continue to work closely with DECA, who remains an incredible agency that receives state funding to be able to provide free naloxone. And so anytime we're getting those additional requests, we're connecting our community partners with DECA to get that free naloxone through them. We are also, something that's kind of emerging is as the drug landscape changes, we're needing to be proactive in trying to shift to make sure that we are meeting the needs of what exists within our community. And so on a positive note, both the DEA contends that it's around 3 out of 10 pills now that contain illicitly made fentanyl. Previously, it was around 7 out of 10. So that's another positive move. But what we're seeing now are continued trends in using other synthetically made types of drugs. And we also recently, we worked very closely with MedAct. They're a wonderful partner. But in looking at data, really trying to be responsive to a new need, and that is individuals having overdoses from stimulants, which we haven't historically seen. And so we're seeing a lot of users of methamphetamine over time who are chronically now experiencing cardiovascular issues. And so we're working as a coalition to sort of shift in terms of working to address those stimulant issues and working with partners also with Midwest HIDTA, the high-intensity drug trafficking area, to try and be able to look strategically, map out where some of those areas are that need extra support and education. And so we've developed a plan to outreach and help provide resources on what we see within overdoses from stimulant use.
Thank you so much for that. One more question from me, and then I'm going to pass it along. I appreciate the increased focus on recovery. As we look at that continuum, you mentioning that it is underfunded, so I appreciate the focus there. On the recovery housing funds, I understand we'll partner with different recovery houses or providers. What does the capacity in our region look like for that? Are we going to be able, is there enough capacity to handle not only our increase in recovery housing funds, but the need generally?
So the need generally is when someone needs to move into a recovery bed or a recovery house, sober living situation, typically we're able to find a bed for them. And in some cases, there's a brief waiting time, or sometimes there's a brief wait time. One of the things that we have been able to do is be able to utilize our Adult Crisis Stabilization Center as a holding area, so that if someone, instead of coming out of residential treatment and going back to their home or going back to their friends that they were using with, they could come stay at the crisis center for a couple days and then move directly into sober living. And so we typically aren't having difficulty finding those sober living beds. The problem is helping people who have not been able to work for the last 30 days have enough money to move into them. So being able to provide a deposit and that first month's rent to get them there for 30 days to start a job, and then be able to take that on their own, that's the critical step I think that we're missing. And I think we'll be able to come back and look at that and be able to determine whether or not we were able to get people in effective way. I'm not concerned at this moment in time about the availability of beds. I'm more concerned about being able to fund or help people with that roughly $750 that they need to move into a sober living facility right away.
All right, thanks, Tim.
Yeah.
Commissioner Ashcraft, you want to go next?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, Mr. DeWeese, first of all, I want to thank you for assuming this role that you have, and I know it's kind of an unusual opportunity to be on the foundation, the building of a new program, which is a challenge and one that I think we all would prefer that we didn't have you doing, but it's the reality of it and the opportunity to try to address it. I was wondering, we have about 600,000, you said, for 2027. What have we spent on the program out of these funds so far? Do we have any?
So if we go back to that, to the slide that shows the 2025, yeah, so this would be for 2025, and I'd have to go back to look at before years, but that's definitely what I could, we can definitely get that for you. And then we could also break this down to just show you where our opioid funds went last year, which is in that backslide that says yes. The only difference would be that it was slightly less for our one-time FTE. So we spent this amount of money. If you look at each of the yeses, that's where we spent our money last year. If you want to look in totality, that the money was spent, of money that was spent in Johnson County in 2025 or in 2026, you can look at that previous slide. But I can provide you that breakdown.
Well, it appears to be several $1 million
yes,
so far.
Absolutely.
Yes. And the reason I ask that is, and we've had this discussion and on the board, and something that wears on me, being of the previous generation and the tobacco settlement funds and how those funds morphed into, various contorted efforts far removed from tobacco and addressing that issue. I just am sensitive about using these funds and focusing on opioids and the opioid settlements. And I think you've acknowledged this, but what I'm really struggling with is what are the outcomes that we have reached so far? What is our goal? And you've indicated the benchmark study and some other issues, and I think you acknowledge that it's a challenge. But I really would I would really encourage that. That's my concern. These funds are available, but anything that I can do to help make sure we focus on addressing the opioid addiction issue that these funds were originally covered under. Please call upon me. Please do what you can.
I appreciate that, and I think that as we move into this next year, as we move into 27, and actually as we finish 26, we'll be able to have some more definitive data. I think the bottom line is that we see fentanyl deaths going down. We see fentanyl deaths among youth, among young people going down specifically in Johnson County. We see it across the nation, but it's specifically going down. I think the fact that you have fewer manufactured pills having fentanyl in them is an indicator. I think the fact that you have fewer MedAct implementations of Narcan demonstrates the accessibility to Narcan across the organization or across the community. So I think that those are the ones that it's pretty clear that we're simply saving lives. I think we'll be able to demonstrate even to a further state about how effective we have that we're being in getting people out of treatment into recovery, sustaining their recovery for a period of time. So kind of that recidivism, if you think of it from a correction standpoint, that they're not coming back through the system. I do also think that's another area that we can look at. I think that we see, we can take a look at the number of fentanyl cases that exist. We can look at the number of arrests or bookings that have to do with fentanyl drug charges, those kinds of things. And so I think those are all the things that have been running through our minds as we were tasked with this project and helping the Prevention Coalition look at all of those things as we move forward in 27. And that is the sole reason that we asked for the prevention coordinator to go from a half-time to a full-time so that we could dedicate the effort to make sure that we can do that.
Well, Mr. DeWeese, I appreciate your summary, but as has happened with the tobacco issue, there are environmental changes that have probably played on that. And while I appreciate that there has been a national shifting in that, I want to make sure that our local efforts are going directly and having the outcome to, as you say, prevent, reduce, treat, and mitigate. And having the programs be able to establish their impact on that for us. So I wish you well. Thank you.
Well, and Commissioner Ashcraft, I agree with you, and I think we had these conversations when the opioid settlement came forward. I can recognize we don't exist in a bubble too, and there are national and state efforts that are also underlying a lot of the good work that's going on here in Johnson County, and especially when we're talking about human services. It's hard to tie certain actions to overall outcomes. So I can appreciate the challenge that you all are facing there. And that being the challenge, one of the best things that we can do is, rely upon our experts to guide us in putting these funds in places where they see gaps, and hopefully our impact layered with the efforts extraneous to Johnson County or in coordination with Johnson County reaches those overall metrics that we try to achieve, right?
I will just also say that, we've talked a lot about with the Parks and Rec folks being here and Commissioner Meyer being out at the game. One of the things that I got this weekend was a couple texts because there's one big banner at the fest that says "You never know," and it's about the fentanyl awareness campaign. And then there's also there's periods of time where public service announcements run in open spots during the games, like the cooling or the hydration breaks they take. One of those public service announcements are for fentanyl awareness and being able to make sure to reduce those fentanyl awareness. So we're looking at every opportunity that we can to promote this in the community and provide the right level of service in the right area in that domain. So we're utilizing a framework, and I appreciate the work group. I appreciate Sierra's work, Mike Brower's work. The deputy county manager, Julie, worked all together to kind of put that together within that framework and then allow us to be able to make these recommendations so that we can feel good about where that $600,000 is going. Understand we don't have maybe the pieces of the KPIs right now, but I believe that based upon our work in that area, we will be able to demonstrate that.
Commissioner Allenbrand.
Thank you, Chair. So help me, so first of all, I know that, and I'm not an expert, so I couldn't get the numbers, that usually when there's drug abuse, it usually starts with alcohol. So there's usually both very bad devices that work together. And and first of all, I want to thank you and the team together for all the work that you've done on this. So I know you're not busy, so this was probably something you really look forward to doing. But so the housing, recovery housing funds, I really like seeing that. And I think it's important because it's keeping people probably from being homeless, keeping them out of our jails. It's just very, very important. And so I don't want people throwing apples or tomatoes at me, but my question is UCS, I know we fund them, and what is their role? I mean, I would have liked to seen the housing funds supported more. And so I guess that's one thing that just stuck out at me, what do they do on top of that they're getting 100,000 and the housing, which we need so greatly, how we came up with that.
So actually, in some cases, those funds, that $100,000 that will go to UCS will be then redirected back into the community, and they may, in fact, be used for some additional housing recovery funds resources, depending upon the agencies that request. So if you look back further in that multicolored, slide that I provided, all of the funds that exist that come from different areas, some of those are that $100,000. So really, the United Community Services is in essence taking the leadership in distributing even more funds to the community in different ways to nonprofit organizations to help support that. So it honestly in that sense, it relieves us from doing that. And we know we have a good partner within UCS that has a track record of being able to allocate those funds in appropriate ways. So I do think that we started out with 50. I know people were in the group were pushing for more, but I wanted us to start with 50 so that we could get some indication about how effectively use that $50,000, and were we able to get people immediately into the homes, which are the questions that you already asked. So depending upon that, we may be back next year with an adjustment to that, asking for more. But this isn't the only source of recovery housing funds. We utilize those from UCS. We utilize those within some of our other grant dollars that we get for opioid settlement funds as well.
I really appreciate your response. That helps me some, but I still would have liked to see more money instead of funneling it to other organizations.
Understood.
So thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Deweese. I have a follow-up question to this question, but how long and how much are we expecting these opioid funds to continue?
Go ahead, Julie. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Commissioner Myers. When we did the presentation last November, so this information's from then, we were projected to receive $9.63 million over 17 years. As of September of 2025, we'd received $3.8 million and had a balance of $2.2 million. The board had previously allocated money in 24, 25, and 26. So this will be our fourth year of allocations.
So I agree that the landscape's changing, and that's one of the situations that we have to take a look at, or you have to take a look at, and be ready to make adjustments. And that's why sometimes on Mr. Ashcraft, some of the things that he's talking about for KPI, there's going to be this adjustment on where and what that funding is going to actually go towards, even though it's still related to opioid abuse. But should we, and someday these funds are going to end, and of course, I've been around long enough to know that 17 years goes like that. And so should we, or can we, or has it been talked about taking some of this funding that we're reserving and taking a small percentage and putting it aside so that when the day does come that there's no longer that funding source coming in, that we have monies to be able to extend our time with some of that. And I don't even know if that's allowed, but has it ever been discussed? Or, my thinking is we want this program, more than likely, after 17 years, it's probably not going away.
Right.
totally. And so we would need some type of funding source to keep us, to allow us to go a little bit further.
I think that's definitely something that we can look at. I'm not sure that's even allowed within the way that the funds are allocated, but it's certainly something that we could take a look at and see if that's something that we could consider doing. I do think that the comments are absolutely correct about the shifting landscape. I mean, even with Sierra's just sharing that, okay, so fentanyl is maybe not as focused on right now, because now we're focused on cardiac issues with people who have been longtime methamphetamine users. And so that it's a constant shift. I think that is also the beauty about how you all have decided to utilize these funds. You're putting it in the hands of the coalition that then can understand that shifting landscape and then make the adjustments. And so I think that we'll see that over time. These are our recommendations for 27. They may look very different next year and as we talk about 28. So I think that's where understanding that landscape and working with all our community partners to see what they're experiencing so that we can make the best decisions about how to best utilize these funds. But I definitely think that's something to look at.
Thank you, Chair. And it's going to be like kind of like speed dating, because I have a lot of thoughts I want to share in a very short amount of time. First of all, and answer some of the discussion that's been up here at the dais. So any concern about mission creep on the opioid settlement funds, I feel, has been very well addressed by slide 26. If we could go back to slide 26, and then I'm going to have you go to slide 27. Last year, my first year on the commission, during the budgeting process, last year, and since this fund has been in place, my understanding is that the budgeting requests for the fund have been embedded in different department and agency budgets and kind of presented piecemeal throughout the budget process. And so there wasn't a complete, clear picture on what's the statutory uses of the fund, how we're choosing to use, and how they're impacting. So this model fits the statutory uses of the fund: promotion, prevention, treatment, and recovery. And taking this model, if you could go to slide 27, and then not only having an understanding of the county's investment of the $600,000 annually, but having a greater understanding of all monies available that are going to programs and services in Johnson County and where those dollars are going spread out over the 4 big categories of statutory allowable uses is what is allowing the Prevention Coalition to have that strategic look at where we want to put county funds that we make the decisions on here at the commission level in the landscape of what is being done and what isn't being done and where we have the expertise to fill in the gaps. As far as KPIs, this model was just developed, and this is the first funding year that this model is being deployed. So I have full confidence that KPIs can and will be developed out of this. I think it's premature to have that expectation already, since this is the first year that the model's been deployed. The other thing that I really appreciate in the state statute around recovery is in the alcohol tax fund, a very long-term state statute, recovery efforts was silent in that statute, unlike the current statute. So this allows us to be very intentional, and it allows that housing, not only as recovery housing, but what Mr. Deweese said earlier, one of the key things for somebody to maintain sobriety is to not only get that the support, but to be able to move outside of maybe that area, really, that helped create that dynamic of bad habits. So really, the statute allows some housing support beyond just sobriety houses. It allows housing support in general as a component of recovery. I also wanted to note that with Mr. Brower sitting on the Kansas Fights Addiction state level, what we've been able to do is also look at how are we, because 75% of the opioid settlement funds are allocated at the state level, and then the 25 comes down to the local jurisdiction level, the 12.5 and the 12.5 between counties and cities. I think we've been able to be more intentional in working with all our community partners in making sure that we're doing everything we can to apply for money from the state level process. And I'm going to say that because last year I attended as Kansas Fights Addiction state level conference. We were one of the few jurisdictions in 2025 that had started expending dollars. There were countless jurisdictions who not expended even $1 other than doing some studies on how to spend their dollars on actually putting money into the community. And we have to look at this as three buckets. We have the state money that's coming in that you have to apply for. You have the money that's coming into the local Johnson County government, and that's what we're talking about. We're spreading that intentionally over 17 years, so it does have as long a spend down as we can. And then 100,000 of that we're putting into a community pot that UCS is facilitating, and that helps that community pot, right, by us being a partner in that, leverage the city's portion of their opioid settlement dollars. So that's all going into one big pot that's around $2 million that then goes back out to the community. So it's not UCS receiving money for UCS work, it's UCS facilitating a process that we participate in, therefore encouraging cities to put their money in, therefore creating a more impactful approach. My one question for you is, with moving the community prevention coordinator from part-time to full-time, I know part of what that community prevention coordinator did is help fill in that area of promotion that really needs some additional energy in the pot, because what I'm understanding, I think from previous conversation, is by having that coordinator work with entities within the county and outside the county, you're able to develop some promotional and educational messaging that everybody can participate in and help scale up. By moving this position to full-time, will that allow capacity for a little bit more intentional promotional efforts?
Absolutely, and that's the thought about moving it from half-time. With half-time, we were just solely focused on just getting the PRC and making sure that it's running. With a full-time position, then we can also be intentional about each and one of those work groups that are dedicated, and that's definitely an area where we'll continue to focus, because that promotion and recovery are really the two outliers that need attention.
Thank you.
Further questions? All right, seeing none.
All right.
First of all,
No, go ahead.
thank you, Tim. Thank you, Sierra.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mike.
It's up to the board on the lunchtime.
Okay, we'll take approximately 35, 40 minutes then for the break, and then we'll come back thereafter for the outside agencies.
Okay, thank you.
We'll be in recess. 145, 150, 150, 150.
Thank you.